My daughter asked for the keys to my house just in case. I gave them. The next day, a neighbor called me. Come urgently, she wants to sell your house. I installed hidden cameras and saw, good day, dear listeners. It's Larissa again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. For 67 years, I had built my life brick by brick. My house on Maple Street wasn't just property. It was where I raised my daughter Jennifer, where my late husband Tom and I celebrated 35 anniversaries, where every corner held a memory. After Tom passed 3 years ago, that house became my anchor, my sanctuary, my legacy. I thought Jennifer understood that. I thought I had raised her to value family, honesty, and hard work. How naive I was. The signs started small. So small I dismissed them as a mother's paranoia. Jennifer began visiting more frequently, something that should have warmed my heart, but instead felt oddly calculated. Her questions changed, too. Mom, have you thought about estate planning? She'd ask over coffee. You know, just to make things easier. Later. Later. As if I were already halfway to the grave. Then came the comments about the house. This place is so big for just you, Mom. Don't you get lonely? Or, the maintenance must be overwhelming. Have you considered downsizing? Each question felt like a gentle push toward a cliff I couldn't quite see yet. I brushed it off. She's concerned about me, I told myself. She's my daughter. She loves me. But love, I would learn, wears many masks. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything shifted. Jennifer stopped by unannounced, which itself was unusual. She lived 40 minutes away and usually called first. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her purse strap, her eyes not quite meeting mine. Mom, I need to ask you something, she said, settling onto my couch with an uncomfortable smile. Could I get a spare key to your house? Just, for emergencies, in case something happens and I need to get in quickly. My stomach tightened, though I couldn't explain why. What kind of emergency? I asked. Oh, she waved her hand vaguely. What if you fall and can't get to the door? What if there's a fire or a medical issue? I'd hate to waste time waiting for paramedics to break down the door when I could just let them in. It sounded reasonable, loving even. What kind of mother suspects her own daughter of ulterior motives? Just for peace of mind, Jennifer added, leaning forward. For both of us. Against my better judgment, against that small voice in my head screaming no, I walked to my kitchen drawer and pulled out the spare key. Jennifer's face lit up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Thank you, Mom. This means so much. She hugged me, but her embrace felt hollow, theatrical. She left 10 minutes later, and I stood at my window watching her car disappear down the street. Why did I feel like I'd just made a terrible mistake? The answer came the very next day. I was at my weekly book club meeting when my phone buzzed. Harold Thompson, my neighbor of 20 years, rarely called me. My hands trembled as I answered. Margaret, you need to come home right now. Harold's voice was urgent, almost panicked. It's about Jennifer. She's here with some man I've never seen before. They're taking photos of everything, inside and outside. I heard them talking about listing prices. My blood turned to ice. Listing prices? Ding. Margaret, Harold said slowly, carefully. I think she's trying to sell your house. The room spun. My fellow book club members' voices faded to white noise. Jennifer, my daughter. The child I had sacrificed everything for. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But even as I thought it, I knew Harold wasn't lying. I knew, with sickening clarity, that every strange visit, every probing question, every concerned comment had been leading to this moment. I grabbed my purse and ran for the door. The drive home felt endless, my mind racing with questions that had no good answers. How long had she been planning this? Who was helping her? And most painfully, how had I not seen this coming? I pulled into my driveway to find Jennifer's car still parked outside. Through my living room window, I could see shadows moving. My daughter and a stranger, walking through my home as if they owned it, as if I were already gone. My hands shook so badly I could barely get my key in the lock. When I pushed open the door, they froze like deer in headlights. Jennifer stood in my dining room with a man in an expensive suit, mid-40s, slicked back hair, holding a tablet and a measuring tape. "Mom!" Jennifer's voice was too bright, too cheerful. "What are you doing here? I thought you had book club until 3. "I do," I said coldly, my eyes locked on the stranger. "Who is this?" "This is Mr. Patterson," Jennifer said smoothly, too smoothly. "He's a real estate appraiser. I asked him to come give us an estimate on the house's value, for insurance purposes, making sure you're properly covered." The lie was so polished, so rehearsed, it made my stomach turn. Insurance purposes. Did she really think I was that stupid? That senile? "Get out," I said quietly. Mr. Patterson looked between us uncomfortably. Jennifer's smile faltered. "Mom, don't be ridiculous. Get out!" My voice cracked like thunder. "Both of you, now!" Mr. Patterson gathered his things quickly, mumbling apologies, clearly wanting no part of whatever family drama he'd walked into. Jennifer, however, stood her ground. "You're overreacting," she said, her voice taking on a patronizing tone I'd never heard from her before. "I'm trying to help you, Mom. You can't take care of this place anymore. You're getting older, and I'm 67, not 97. My mind is perfectly clear, and this is my house." I pointed toward the door. "Leave, and give me back that key." For a moment, something ugly flashed across Jennifer's face, something cold and calculating that made her look like a stranger. Then the mask slipped back on, and she was my daughter again, hurt and confused. "Fine," she said softly, reaching into her purse. She handed me the key, her eyes glistening with theatrical tears. "I was only trying to help. But if you don't want my support—" She left without another word, and I locked the door behind her, my whole body trembling. I collapsed onto my couch, the key clutched in my fist. What had just happened? Had I overreacted? No. Harold had heard them discussing listing prices. This wasn't about insurance. This was about selling my home out from under me. But why? Jennifer had a good job, a nice apartment. She wasn't hurting for money. Unless, was she in debt? Was someone pressuring her? Or had I simply failed to see who she really was all along? The questions tormented me through a sleepless night. By morning, fear had transformed into something harder, colder, determination. I couldn't just confront Jennifer again. She'd deny everything, twist the narrative, make me doubt my own perceptions. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable evidence of what she was planning. That's when I remembered my friend Dorothy mentioning security cameras. Her son had installed them after a break-in, and they'd caught everything. Could I do the same? I spent that morning researching, my fingers clumsy on the keyboard, but my resolve growing stronger with each article I read. By noon, I'd driven to an electronics store where a patient young man named Marcus helped me select 3 small, discrete cameras with motion sensors and cloud storage. "These will send alerts to your phone," Marcus explained, showing me the app. "And they record continuously, saving everything to the cloud. You can access the footage from anywhere." Perfect. Exactly what I needed. Installing them myself took hours. My arthritic hands struggled with the tiny screws, and I had to watch YouTube tutorials 3 times to understand the Wi-Fi setup. But by evening, I had cameras positioned in my living room, kitchen, and front hallway. All three were nearly invisible, tucked behind picture frames and decorative objects. Now I just had to wait. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, while I was at my dentist appointment, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. My heart hammered as I opened the app and watched the live feed. Jennifer was in my house again. She'd made a copy of the key before returning it. She wasn't alone. A woman I didn't recognize was with her, platinum blonde, designer clothes, walking through my home with a clipboard. They moved room to room, the woman making notes, Jennifer pointing out original hardwood floors and updated kitchen appliances like a realtor showing a property. But it was their conversation, captured crystal clear by my cameras, that made my blood boil. "Your mother has no idea?" the blonde woman asked. Jennifer laughed. Actually laughed. "Mom's been slipping mentally for months. Early dementia, I think. She barely remembers conversations we had last week. Once I get power of attorney established, this place is ours to sell. She'll probably end up in a care facility anyway. Might as well liquidate the assets now." I sat in my dentist's waiting room staring at my phone screen, watching my daughter destroy me with lies. Early dementia? Mentally slipping? Every word was a calculated fabrication, building a narrative that would let her steal everything I'd worked for. The blonde woman, I would later learn her name, was Diane Marshfield, a real estate agent Jennifer had been conspiring with for months, nodded sympathetically. "And she's signing things? Legal documents?" "Not yet," Jennifer admitted, and I could hear the frustration in her voice. "She's being stubborn about it, but I'm working on her. A few more confused moments, maybe a staged fall or two, and I'll convince her she needs help managing her affairs. Then it's just paperwork." A staged fall. My own daughter was planning to physically harm me to advance her scheme. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive home immediately and confront them both. But something stopped me. Some instinct that told me I needed to be smarter than my rage. I saved the video, my hands shaking, and watched them finish their tour and leave. That evening, I sat in my darkened living room and reviewed every second of footage from the past 2 days. The cameras had captured everything. Jennifer entering my home with her copied key while I was at church. Her rifling through my desk drawers, photographing documents. My will, my bank statements, the deed to my house. Her phone conversations with Diane, discussing how quickly they could flip the property after getting me situated in a nursing home. "The key is making sure there's a paper trail of her incompetence," Jennifer had said during one call, pacing my kitchen like she owned it. Doctor's visits where I express concern. Witnesses to her confusion. Maybe some medication mix-ups that make her seem more out of it. Medication mix-ups. She was planning to drug me. I had birthed this person, nursed her through childhood illnesses, worked 2 jobs to send her to college. And this was how she repaid me? The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. But beneath the hurt, something else grew. A cold, methodical determination to fight back. I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. What crime had actually been committed? She hadn't sold the house, hadn't forged my signature. A lawyer might say she was just concerned about her aging mother, that I was paranoid. I needed more than videos of her walking through my house. I needed a paper trail of her intentions. Legal proof. Something that would stand up in court if it came to that. The next morning, I called my attorney, Robert Chen. Robert had handled Tom's estate after he passed, and I trusted him completely. "Margaret," he said warmly when his secretary put me through, "what can I do for you?" I took a deep breath. "Robert, I need help. My daughter is trying to steal my house." Silence. Then, "Can you come to my office this afternoon? And bring any evidence you have." 2 hours later, I sat across from Robert's desk, watching his expression grow darker as he reviewed the camera footage on his laptop. He watched Jennifer's conversations, her schemes, her casual cruelty. When he finally looked up, his jaw was tight. "Margaret, this is serious," he said. "What she's planning, fabricating evidence of incompetence, potential medication tampering, that's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal. Fraud, elder abuse, possibly even assault if she goes through with drugging you." "What can I do?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Robert leaned back, thinking. "First, we document everything. These videos are excellent evidence, but we need more. We need to catch her in an overt act, attempting to forge your signature, trying to file fraudulent power of attorney papers, something concrete." "How do I do that?" "You give her the opportunity," Robert said carefully. "You play along. Let her think her plan is working. Meanwhile, we'll prepare. I'll draft documentation establishing your complete mental competence. We'll get you evaluated by a neurologist, a psychiatrist, whatever it takes. We'll create an airtight paper trail showing you're of sound mind. Then, when she makes her move, we'll have her." It felt like a trap, dangerous and risky. What if she moves faster than we expect? What if she tries to hurt me? "Then we go to the police immediately," Robert said firmly. "But Margaret, if we move too soon, she'll just deny everything. Claim she was concerned, that you misunderstood. We need her to incriminate herself beyond any doubt." I thought about it, my mind racing through scenarios. Could I really pretend not to know what Jennifer was doing? Could I face her, smile at her, let her think she was winning? Yes, for my home, my dignity, my future, yes, I could. "What do I need to do?" I asked. Robert smiled grimly. "First, we protect your assets. We're setting up documentation that prevents anyone from accessing your accounts or selling your property without multiple layers of verification. Then, we wait for Jennifer to make her move. And when she does, we'll be ready." Over the next week, I followed Robert's instructions precisely. I underwent cognitive testing with Dr. Sarah Martinez, a neuropsychologist who confirmed what I already knew. My mind was sharp as ever. I met with my bank manager and established new protocols for any major transactions. I updated my will, explicitly excluding Jennifer and documenting my reasons. All the while, Jennifer called me regularly, her voice dripping with false concern. "How are you feeling, Mom? Any dizzy spells? Confusion?" She was building her narrative, creating her fiction of my declining health. "I'm fine, dear," I would say, keeping my voice neutral. Just the usual aches and pains. I could hear the frustration in her responses. I wasn't deteriorating on her schedule. Then, one evening, she called with a new urgency. "Mom, I've been thinking. We should really get your legal affairs in order. Just basic stuff. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy. You know, in case something happens. Can I bring some papers by tomorrow for you to sign? My friend Diane knows a notary who can make it all official." There it was, the moment Robert had predicted. She was ready to make her move. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, my heart pounding. "Whatever you think is best." The next afternoon, Jennifer arrived with Diane and another woman she introduced as Karen, a mobile notary. All three wore practiced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They spread documents across my dining room table, the same table where I'd helped Jennifer with homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays, where family had gathered for decades. Now it was a stage for my daughter's betrayal. "These are just standard forms, Mom," Jennifer said, her voice sugary sweet. "Power of attorney, so I can help manage your bills if you get confused. Healthcare proxy, so I can make medical decisions if needed. Really basic stuff that every older person should have." I picked up the papers, my reading glasses perched on my nose, and began actually reading them. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. Most elderly people, I realized, would just sign where they were told. Trust their children, not scrutinize the fine print. But I read every word, and what I found made my blood run cold. This wasn't basic power of attorney. This was full, immediate, and irrevocable power of attorney. Jennifer would have complete control over my finances, my property, my medical care, effective the moment I signed. I could be committed to a nursing home against my will. My house could be sold without my consent. I would become a non-person, legally speaking, at the stroke of a pen. This seems very comprehensive, I said carefully, aware of the cameras recording everything. Maybe I should have my lawyer review it first? Jennifer's smile tightened. Mom, it's completely standard. My lawyer drafted it specifically to protect you. If you delay and something happens to you, I won't be able to help. Your lawyer? I asked. What's their name? She hesitated, just a fraction of a second. James Morrison, very respected in elder law. I'd have Robert look into that later. I was betting heavily that James Morrison either didn't exist or had no idea his name was being used. I'd still like my attorney to review it, I said firmly, setting the papers down. The temperature in the room dropped. Diane and Karen exchanged glances. Jennifer's mask slipped, and that cold, calculating stranger I'd glimpsed before emerged. Mom, I don't think you understand the situation, Jennifer said, her voice losing its sweetness. You're not well. You forget things. You get confused. Just last week you couldn't remember what day it was. A lie. A blatant, documented lie. I remember everything perfectly, Jennifer. Do you? She leaned forward, her eyes hard. Do you remember calling me at 3 a.m, confused about where Dad was? Do you remember leaving the stove on twice last month? Do you remember getting lost driving to the grocery store? Each accusation was fiction, but she delivered them with such conviction that I could see Karen the notary wavering, starting to view me as a confused old woman rather than a woman defending herself. None of that happened, I said quietly. See? You don't even remember. This is exactly why we need these papers signed. Mom, I'm trying to help you before you hurt yourself or someone else, before you lose everything because you can't manage anymore. She was good. I'd give her that. If I didn't know better, I might believe her concern was genuine. And if I refuse? I asked. The room went silent. Then Diane spoke up for the first time. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter has been documenting concerning behaviors for months. If you're deemed mentally incompetent by medical evaluation, which seems likely given what Jennifer has shared with me, the court can appoint a guardian for you regardless of your wishes. Wouldn't you rather it be family? A threat, thinly veiled, but a threat nonetheless. I see, I said. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. I'd like you all to leave now. Mom? Jennifer started. Now! Something in my voice must have convinced them not to push further. Karen gathered her notary supplies quickly. Diane gave Jennifer a meaningful look that said, "We'll try another approach." And Jennifer looked at me with such open hatred that I barely recognized her. "You're making a mistake," she said at the door. "A huge mistake. When you end up in a state facility because you're too stubborn to accept help, don't blame me." The door slammed behind them. I stood alone in my house, trembling from head to toe, and let out a breath I'd been holding for an hour. Then I called Robert. "They just left," I said. "I have everything on video. The documents, the lies, the threats, everything." "Perfect," Robert said. "Margaret, you did incredibly well. I'm filing a restraining order first thing tomorrow morning, along with documentation of her fraud attempt and threats. We're also notifying Adult Protective Services. This ends now." But it didn't end. It escalated. Over the next 3 days, Jennifer called me 17 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that ranged from tearful apologies to vicious accusations to outright threats. "You're going to regret this, Mom. I'll make sure everyone knows how crazy you are. I'll have you declared incompetent. You'll die alone in a home, and I'll sell that house anyway." Each message was saved, each threat documented. Then the emails started, then the text messages. Then she showed up at my door, pounding and screaming until Harold threatened to call the police. The stress was overwhelming. I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. I had panic attacks in my own home, terrified she'd find a way in, that she'd make good on her threats. Robert's restraining order was approved, but it felt like paper protection against Jennifer's escalating fury. "You need to take some time," Robert advised. "Get away for a few days. Let me handle the legal maneuvering. You've done your part." He was right. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. My friend Dorothy offered her beach cottage in Delaware, a quiet place where I could rest and recover while the legal wheels turned. I left the next morning, the cameras still recording, the house locked tight. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror at the home I was fighting for and made myself a promise. I would not let Jennifer win, no matter what it took. The beach cottage was exactly what I needed. Quiet, isolated, with nothing but the sound of waves and seagulls. For 3 days, I barely looked at my phone. I walked the beach, read books, tried to remember who I was before all of this chaos. But Jennifer wasn't done. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mom." Jennifer's voice was different, soft, broken, tearful. "Please don't hang up, please. I just need to talk to you." I said nothing, waiting. I've been seeing a therapist," she continued. "About my behavior, about what I tried to do. Mom, I was wrong, so incredibly wrong. I was under so much pressure. I made terrible decisions, and I hurt the person I love most in this world." It sounded genuine. Rehearsed, but genuine. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she went on. "But I need you to know I've dropped everything. The power of attorney, the house plans, all of it. I just want my mom back. I want to make this right." Part of me, the part that remembered rocking her to sleep as a baby, helping her through her first heartbreak, celebrating her college graduation, wanted desperately to believe her, to have my daughter back. But I'd seen her mask slip too many times now. "I appreciate you calling, Jennifer," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "But I need time. A lot of time." "I understand," she sniffled convincingly. "But Mom, there's something you should know. That lawyer, Robert Chen, he's been charging you excessive fees. I've done some research, and he's taking advantage of you. He's the one pushing for all this legal action because it makes him money. Can't you see that?" And there it was. The poison wrapped in concern. She couldn't manipulate me directly anymore, so she was trying to turn me against my attorney, isolate me from the person helping me fight back. "Robert has been nothing but professional," I said coldly. "Goodbye, Jennifer." I hung up before she could respond and immediately blocked the number. My hands weren't shaking this time. I felt calm, clear-headed. Jennifer had overplayed her hand by attacking Robert. It made her desperation obvious. That evening, I called Dorothy from the cottage. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. I told her everything. The cameras, the lawyers, Jennifer's latest attempt at manipulation. Dorothy listened without interruption, then said something that made me cry for the first time since this ordeal began. "Margaret, you are the strongest woman I know. What Jennifer did is unforgivable, and you are absolutely right to fight back. I'm here for you, whatever you need." The next call was to my book club group chat. Within an hour, I'd heard from all 7 members, each offering support outrage at Jennifer's behavior, and practical help. Patricia, a retired judge, offered to review my legal documents. Susan, who worked in banking, gave me advice on additional protections for my accounts. Linda just offered to come sit with me when I got back. This was what Jennifer had tried to destroy. Not just my house, but my community, my support system, my life. She'd underestimated how deep my roots went. I stayed at the cottage for a full week, regaining my strength. Robert texted me periodic updates. Jennifer had contacted him trying to negotiate, claiming I was unwell and making rash decisions. He'd shut her down immediately. Adult Protective Services had investigated and found no evidence of incompetence. In fact, their report praised my clarity and decisiveness. The legal machinery was working, slowly but inexorably, in my favor. When I finally drove home, I felt ready. Not just to defend myself, but to actively reclaim my life from Jennifer's shadow. Harold greeted me at my door with a casserole and a hug. "Glad you're back, Margaret. We missed you. And don't worry, I've been keeping an eye on the place. She hasn't been back. The cameras confirmed it. In my absence, Jennifer had driven by twice, but never stopped, never tried to enter. She was watching, waiting, planning her next move. Let her, I thought. I was ready for whatever came next. The answer came 2 days later when Dorothy called me, her voice tight with anger. "Margaret, you need to know something. Jennifer came to see me yesterday." My heart sank. What did she want? She wanted me to convince you to drop the restraining order. She had this whole story about how you misunderstood her intentions, how she was only trying to help, how the stress was making you paranoid. She said you'd always been a bit fragile mentally, and this whole thing was a breakdown. What did you tell her? Dorothy's laugh was sharp. I told her I'd known you for 30 years, and you had more mental clarity than most people half your age. Then I told her that if she ever came to my house again, I'd call the police myself. "Thank you," I whispered. "She's desperate, Margaret," Dorothy warned. "Desperate people do dangerous things. Be careful." She was right to worry. Jennifer's next move would prove just how far she was willing to go. They came on a Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks after I'd returned from Dorothy's cottage. I was in my garden, trimming roses, when Jennifer's car pulled into my driveway. She wasn't alone. A man in his 60s emerged from the passenger side, well-dressed, distinguished-looking, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Jennifer looked different too, subdued, remorseful, wearing a simple dress instead of her usual designer clothes. "Mom!" she called from the end of my driveway, not crossing the property line. "Please, just 5 minutes. This is Dr. Richard Thornton. He's a family therapist who specializes in rebuilding relationships. I've been seeing him for weeks, working on myself. He's here as a mediator, nothing more. Please." The restraining order was still in effect. Technically, she was violating it just by being here, but she was staying off my property, and she'd brought a supposed professional as a buffer. I set down my pruning shears, suspicious but curious. What new game was this? "Dr. Thornton?" I called out. "Do you have credentials I can verify?" The man smiled warmly and held up his phone, showing me what appeared to be a legitimate medical license and therapy certification. "Of course, Mrs. Patterson. I completely understand your caution. I'm here purely as a neutral party. Your daughter has been working very hard in therapy to understand her mistakes and make amends. I've seen real growth. I'm not asking you to forgive her, just to hear her out." Something felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint what. The license looked real. His demeanor seemed professional, and Jennifer looked genuinely chastened for the first time. 5 minutes, I said. "You can both sit on the porch steps. I'll stay here in the garden." They approached slowly, carefully, like I was a wild animal they didn't want to spook. Dr. Thornton sat on the steps, while Jennifer remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her like a penitent child. "Mom, I've spent the past month in intensive therapy, facing what I did," Jennifer began, her voice trembling. "I was awful, greedy, manipulative. I convinced myself I was helping you, when really I was helping myself. Dr. Thornton has helped me see that I was projecting my fears onto you, creating a narrative where you were declining because it justified taking control. It sounded textbook, too textbook. I'm not asking you to drop the restraining order, she continued. I'm not asking you to trust me again. I know I destroyed that. I need you to know I'm getting help. And I need to know if there's any possible path, years from now maybe, where we could rebuild something. Dr. Thornton nodded encouragingly. Mrs. Patterson, I've worked with families in crisis for 30 years. What Jennifer did was wrong, absolutely. But I've seen genuine remorse from her. She's doing the work. The question is whether you can find it in yourself to allow for the possibility of healing, even if it's years away. They were good, very good. If I didn't know better, I might believe them. Dr. Thornton, I said carefully, what's your practice address? A flicker of something, irritation, worry, crossed his face. I have offices in Baltimore and Washington. Why do you ask? Just curious. And your license number? Now Jennifer jumped in. Mom, why are you interrogating him? He's here to help. Then he won't mind answering simple questions, I said firmly. License number, doctor? This is exactly the paranoia I've been talking about, Jennifer said, turning to Dr. Thornton. See what I mean? She's suspicious of everyone now, even licensed professionals trying to help. And there it was, the slip in her mask. They'd come here to demonstrate my paranoia to a supposed mental health professional who would then, what? Sign an affidavit about my suspicious behavior? Testify that I refused help? I think you should both leave, I said quietly. Mom, please. Jennifer started toward me. Stop! My voice cracked like a whip. Not one step closer, Jennifer, or I call the police. You're violating a restraining order. The masks dropped. Both of them. Jennifer's face twisted with rage, and Dr. Thornton, whoever he really was, stood up with his hands raised in a placating gesture that felt more threatening than calming. You stupid, stubborn woman, Jennifer hissed. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? I was offering you a way out, a chance to reconcile, to avoid the legal nightmare coming your way. But no, you'd rather cling to your paranoid delusions and your precious house. This house is mine, I said, my voice deadly calm. It will always be mine, not yours. We'll see about that, she snarled. You think your lawyer is so smart? You think your restraining order protects you? I have doctors ready to testify about your declining mental state. I have witnesses who've seen your confusion. I have evidence of your paranoia. Look at you, interrogating a licensed therapist like he's a criminal. He's not a licensed therapist, is he? I asked. Silence. Then Dr. Thornton cleared his throat. Mrs. Patterson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Get off my property, both of you, now. Jennifer took a step forward, her fists clenched, and for a terrifying moment I thought she might actually attack me. But then Harold's voice rang out from his yard next door. Margaret, I've got 911 on the line. Should I tell them to send officers? Bless Harold and his perfect timing. Jennifer spun toward him, then back to me. This isn't over, Mom. Not even close. You want to play hardball? Fine. But when I'm done, you'll be in a state nursing home and I'll be living in this house. That's a promise. They left, tires squealing as Jennifer tore out of my driveway. I stood in my garden, shaking not with fear, but with adrenaline. She'd shown her true face completely now. No more pretenses of concern or love. Just pure, unveiled hatred and greed. Harold came over, his phone still in hand. You okay? I'm fine, I said. And surprisingly, I meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. She just confessed on camera to planning fraud, and she brought a fake therapist as evidence. My lawyer is going to have a field day with this. And he did. When I sent Robert the footage that evening, his response was immediate. She's done. This is over. I'm filing for criminal charges tomorrow. but I felt no triumph. Only a deep, aching sadness for the daughter I'd lost, and the realization that maybe I'd never really known her at all. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined from TV shows: beige walls, fluorescent lights, a handful of wooden benches, but it felt enormous in its importance. This was where my future would be decided. Robert had moved quickly after Jennifer's disastrous visit. Criminal charges for attempted fraud and elder abuse, a civil suit for emotional distress and attempted theft, and a hearing to make my restraining order permanent. Today was that hearing, and Jennifer had been compelled to appear. She sat across the courtroom with her own attorney, a harried-looking man named Gerald Fitzpatrick, who'd clearly taken the case without fully understanding what he was getting into. Jennifer wore a conservative navy suit and minimal makeup, playing the part of the concerned daughter. But I could see the fury simmering beneath her composed exterior. Judge Patricia Hammond presided, mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for having no patience for nonsense. Robert had called me the night before with that information, along with a warning: "She's fair but tough. Tell the truth, stay calm, and we'll be fine." I wore my best dress, the purple one Tom had always loved, and sat with my hands folded, projecting a calm I didn't entirely feel. "Mrs. Patterson," Judge Hammond began after the preliminary proceedings, "please tell me in your own words what brought us here today." I took a breath and told my story. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just the facts. Jennifer's unusual visits, the request for keys, Harold's warning call, the discovery of her plans through hidden cameras, the attempted fraud with forged power of attorney documents, the threats, the fake therapist. Jennifer's attorney tried to interrupt several times, but Judge Hammond silenced him with a look. "And you have documentation of all this?" the judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor." Robert stood and began presenting evidence. Camera footage, time-stamped and dated. The forged documents from James Morrison, a lawyer who, when contacted, confirmed he'd never drafted any such paperwork. Voicemails of Jennifer's threats. Email chains with Diane Marshfield discussing sale prices and splitting profits. The judge watched everything in silence, her expression unreadable. Then it was Jennifer's turn. Her lawyer, Fitzpatrick, stood nervously. "Your Honor, my client admits to some overzealousness in her concern for her mother. But Mrs. Patterson is elderly, living alone, and my client has witnessed concerning behaviors. She was merely trying to ensure her mother's safety and financial security." "By forging legal documents?" Judge Hammond asked dryly. "Those documents were drafted by a lawyer my client consulted. If there was miscommunication about their purpose, that's unfortunate, but not criminal." "And the threats on voicemail?" Fitzpatrick shifted uncomfortably. "Emotional responses made in the heat of family conflict. Regrettable, but understandable given the stress." "And the fake therapist?" Silence. Fitzpatrick had no good answer for that. Judge Hammond turned to Jennifer directly. "Miss Patterson, would you like to speak on your own behalf?" Jennifer stood, smoothing her skirt, and I watched her transform. The mask came back on. The dutiful daughter, hurt and confused. "Your Honor, I love my mother more than anything," she began, her voice quavering perfectly. "When I saw her starting to forget things, to get confused, I panicked. Maybe I went about things the wrong way. Maybe I should have been more patient. But everything I did came from a place of love and concern." "Your mother seems perfectly lucid to me," Judge Hammond observed. "She has good days and bad days," Jennifer said smoothly. "Today is clearly a good day. But I've seen her on bad days, forgetting where she is, losing track of time, making irrational decisions. The hidden cameras, for instance. What mentally sound person installs hidden cameras in their own home because they don't trust their daughter? She was good. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was spinning the narrative, making me seem paranoid and unreasonable. But I'd prepared for this. "Your Honor," Robert said, standing again, "may I present additional evidence?" He handed over a file folder. Inside were my recent medical evaluations. Cognitive testing from Dr. Martinez showing no signs of dementia or decline. Statements from my doctors confirming my excellent mental health. Sworn affidavits from Dorothy, Harold, and 6 other friends and neighbors attesting to my complete lucidity and independence. And one more thing. Bank records showing that 3 months before this started, Jennifer had maxed out 2 credit cards and taken out a personal loan for $75,000. She wasn't just greedy. She was desperate. Judge Hammond reviewed everything in silence that felt eternal. Finally, she looked up. "Ms. Patterson," she said, addressing Jennifer, "I've been a judge for 18 years. I've seen worried children genuinely concerned about aging parents. I've also seen con artists and manipulators. You, young lady, are firmly in the latter category." Jennifer's face went white. "The evidence shows a calculated, premeditated attempt to defraud your mother of her home and assets," Judge Hammond continued. "Hidden cameras aren't paranoia when they catch actual criminal behavior. Your mother had every reason to protect herself." She turned to me. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm making the restraining order permanent. Your daughter is to have no contact with you whatsoever. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." Then back to Jennifer. "As for the criminal charges, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office. I believe prosecution is warranted." Jennifer stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. "This is insane! She's old and confused, and you're all enabling her delusions. When she ends up dead in that house because no one's watching out for her, it'll be on all of you." "Mrs. Patterson, sit down," Judge Hammond ordered. "No, this is my inheritance. My father built that life, and I have every right." "Your father built that life with your mother," the judge said coldly. "It belongs to her. You have no rights to it. And if you don't sit down immediately, I'll hold you in contempt." Security guards moved forward. Jennifer's lawyer grabbed her arm, whispering urgently. Finally, she sat, trembling with rage. Judge Hammond's gavel came down with a sharp crack. "This hearing is concluded. Permanent restraining order granted. Mrs. Patterson, you're free to go." I stood on shaking legs, barely believing it was over. Robert squeezed my shoulder supportively as we left the courtroom. Behind me, I heard Jennifer's voice, low and vicious. "This isn't finished, Mother. Not by a long shot." But it was, and we both knew it. The district attorney, Michael Reynolds, was a no-nonsense prosecutor with a specialty in elder abuse cases. When he reviewed my evidence, his jaw literally tightened with anger. "I hate these cases," he told me in his office a week after the hearing. "Adult children preying on their parents. It's particularly disgusting. And your daughter was sophisticated about it. The fake therapy, the manufactured medical concerns. She knew exactly what she was doing." "What happens now?" I asked. "We prosecute," he said simply. "Elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, identity theft for the fake power of attorney, criminal trespass, stalking. I'm going to throw everything I can at her, and I'm confident it'll stick." It took 3 months for the criminal trial, 3 months during which I reclaimed my life. I changed all my locks. I installed a monitored security system. I updated my will with ironclad provisions explicitly excluding Jennifer and explaining exactly why. But more importantly, I reconnected with my community. Book club became a weekly sanctuary. Harold and I started a neighborhood watch program. Dorothy and I took a cruise to Alaska, something I'd always wanted to do, but Tom had never been interested in. I discovered I didn't need Jennifer. I was whole without her. The trial itself was anticlimactic. Jennifer's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Reynolds refused. "Your client had multiple opportunities to stop," he told Fitzpatrick. "She chose to escalate instead. We're going to trial." The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Jennifer's face when the verdict was read was something I'll never forget. A mix of shock, rage, and disbelief. She'd truly convinced herself she was entitled to my home, that I was the unreasonable one. Judge Hammond, who'd requested to handle the sentencing, showed no mercy. Ms. Jennifer Patterson, you engaged in a calculated, cruel attempt to defraud your own mother. You fabricated mental illness. You forged documents. You terrorized an elderly woman in her own home. This court has no sympathy for you. She sentenced Jennifer to 4 years in prison with a requirement to pay full restitution for my legal fees, over $47,000. Additionally, Jennifer was placed on a registry for elder abusers and would face permanent restrictions on her ability to serve as anyone's power of attorney or guardian. Your greed has cost you everything, Judge Hammond concluded. Your freedom, your career, your relationship with your mother. I hope it was worth it. Jennifer was led away in handcuffs, screaming that this was a miscarriage of justice, that I'd manipulated everyone, that she was the victim. I felt nothing watching her go. No satisfaction, no sadness, just a profound sense of closure. The civil trial against Diane Marshfield came next. She'd tried to distance herself from Jennifer, claiming she was just doing her job as a realtor, but the email chains were damning. She'd known exactly what Jennifer was planning and had actively participated. Her real estate license was revoked. She faced a $100,000 fine for ethical violations. Her career was over. As for Dr. Thornton, whose real name was Marcus Webb, a small-time con artist Jennifer had hired on Craigslist, he took a plea deal and testified against Jennifer in exchange for probation. Apparently, she'd promised him $5,000 to play the therapist role. He'd never received payment. Within 6 months of Jennifer's first appearance at my house with those keys, it was all over. She was in prison. Her co-conspirators were ruined, and I was free. But the real victory wasn't legal, it was personal. I stopped second-guessing myself, stopped wondering if I'd been too harsh, too paranoid, too unforgiving. Jennifer had shown me exactly who she was, and I'd protected myself accordingly. I'd won. Life after the trials was sweeter than I'd imagined possible. I'd expected to feel hollow or sad, mourning the daughter I'd lost. Instead, I felt liberated. I sold Tom's old truck that had been gathering dust in the garage and used the money to renovate my kitchen, something I'd wanted to do for years, but Jennifer had always discouraged. It's too expensive, Mom. Save your money for emergencies. The emergency, I now understood, was supposed to be her. My new kitchen had white marble counters, a professional-grade stove, and a window over the sink that looked out onto my rose garden. I hosted my first dinner party there 3 months after Jennifer's sentencing. Harold, Dorothy, Patricia from book club, and 3 other neighbors who'd supported me through everything. To Margaret, Dorothy raised her glass, the strongest woman I know, you didn't just survive, you thrived. We clinked glasses and I felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. I joined a local theater group and discovered I loved acting. At 67, I played Aunt Eller in our community production of Oklahoma and got a standing ovation. I took watercolor classes and found I had a talent for painting flowers. I volunteered at the library's literacy program, helping adults learn to read. My days were full, rich, purposeful, and my house, the house Jennifer had tried to steal, became a gathering place. Book club met there monthly. The neighborhood watch program used my living room for planning meetings. My grandniece, Emma, Jennifer's cousin's daughter, started visiting on weekends to learn baking from me. Emma was 23, kind, genuinely interested in family history and recipes. She reminded me that not all young people were like Jennifer, that blood didn't determine character. Aunt Margaret, she asked one Saturday while we made pies, do you ever hear from Jennifer? No, I said simply, and I don't want to. I can't believe she did all that. My mom says she always had a selfish streak, but none of us thought. People show you who they are, I said, crimping a pie crust. The trick is believing them. Meanwhile, Jennifer's life had collapsed completely. She served 2 years before being paroled for good behavior, but the damage was permanent. Her high-paying marketing job was gone, fired the day she was arrested. Her apartment was foreclosed on while she was in prison. Her friends abandoned her when the truth came out. I heard through the grapevine Patricia's daughter worked with someone who knew Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, that she was living in a studio apartment in a rough neighborhood, working part-time at a call center, still owing me thousands in restitution. She'd tried to reach out once, through a letter that somehow made it past the restraining order. I'd recognized her handwriting on the envelope and handed it directly to the police, unopened. She was charged with violating the protection order and got another 6 months of supervised probation. Diane Marshfield had it even worse. The real estate community was small, and word spread fast. No broker would work with her. She'd tried to start her own agency and failed. Last I heard, she was waiting tables and facing bankruptcy. Marcus Webb, the fake therapist, had violated his probation by running another scam and was back in prison. They'd all bet on my weakness, my confusion, my decline. They'd all lost. One afternoon, about 18 months after everything ended, Harold and I were sitting on my porch with iced tea, watching the neighborhood kids ride bikes. "You ever have regrets?" he asked. "About how hard you came down on Jennifer?" I considered the question honestly. Did I regret protecting myself? Refusing to be a victim? Standing up for my rights and my home? No, I said firmly. She made her choices. She could have stopped at any time, could have apologized genuinely, could have gotten real help, could have accepted that this house isn't hers. She chose to escalate instead. Those were her decisions, not mine. "You're a tough lady, Margaret Patterson." I smiled. I had to be. The alternative was losing everything I'd worked for to someone who claimed to love me, but only loved what I could give her. As the sun set over Maple Street, painting my house in golden light, I thought about all the years ahead. Travel I wanted to do. Friends I wanted to spend time with. Projects I wanted to tackle. Jennifer had tried to end my story prematurely, to write me off as a confused old woman who didn't know what was best for herself. Instead, I was just beginning a new chapter, and it was mine alone. Looking back now, 3 years later, I understand this wasn't just about a house. It was about respect, dignity, and the right to control your own life. Jennifer didn't just want my property. She wanted to erase me before I was ready. I refused. The lessons are simple. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let anyone, even family, gaslight you into doubting yourself. Document everything. Build a support network. Never give up your power willingly. I'm 70 now, sharp, healthy, and this house is still mine. When the time comes, I'll leave it to Emma, who appreciates it as a home, not an asset. Jennifer is still paying off her debts to me. We'll never speak again. I've made peace with losing an illusion, the daughter I thought I had never really existed. So I ask you, what would you do? If someone you loved betrayed you this completely, would you fight back? I chose to fight, and I've never regretted it. If my story resonates, please share it and leave a comment. If you're facing something similar, trust yourself. You're not paranoid. You're protecting what's yours. Thank you for listening. May you have the courage to stand your ground. This is Margaret Patterson from my kitchen, in my house, living life on my own terms, exactly as it should be.